Good day. It's February the 17th, 2025, and it's the 48th day of 2025. I hope you're having a good one so far. I'm trying to just struggle on. But doing this is quite good fun because you find out some very interesting facts. There's a couple of good ones today, actually. But things that made history on the 17th of February, well, we go back to the 1317 when the Northern Crusades and the Grand Duchy of Lithuania and the Teutonic Knights meet for the Battle of Rudwa. Who heard of the Northern Crusades? Well, it turns out it's the Catholic Church having a bit of a medal, as always, because the northern states, like Latvia, maybe Norway, Sweden, wherever, did not like people not being Christians. They thought they'd go and beat 19 bells of hell out of them to make them be Christians, because that's the way to do it. You sell Christianity through violence. That's a great idea. And that happened in 1500 when Duke Frederick and Duke Johan of Denmark attempted to subdue, that's a good word, subdue, the peasantry of Dithmarschen, Denmark, in the Battle of, I'll get this one, Hemmingstead. Again, it's a religious battle of Catholic versus Lutheran. Lutheran won in that case, and sense prevailed. The Catholic Church, in those early years, 500 or 600 years ago, were shaping history through violence. And again, they were taking this guy and in 1600 on his way to be burned in the Campo di Floro, a piazza in southern Rome. And it was the philosopher Guido Godorin Bruno, let's call him Bruno. He has a wooden voice put on his tongue to prevent him talking. Again, isn't that great? Catholics denying free speech. Oh, it's just unbelievable. But that's what they did. And then they burned him. And most likely they put some gunpowder around his neck, so when it reached there, it blew his head off anyway. They like to make sure in those days. And then in 1621, in Plymouth, United States, Miles Standish was appointed the first military commander for North America. We move on to 1674, and I want you to remember this. This is going to come up again in a minute, but I just want you to remember this. When there was an earthquake strikes the Indonesian island of Ambon, and it triggers a 100-meter tsunami coming at you, and 2,300 people died. I still don't understand how it can be 100 meters, because nobody had invented meters by then, or nor had they, in that probably area of the world, used feet and inches. So it's interesting how somebody estimated it, but it was a mega tsunami, which caused a lot of damage. And this is interesting, and not a lot of people know this. You're going to know it now, because originally we were on what was called the Julian calendar, after Julius Caesar, and people begin to wonder why the seasons were slipping against the timeline, and August was becoming December, so to speak, in weather words. And then all of a sudden, this is a good thing the Catholics did, the Pope Gregory just went, hang on a minute, we're 11 days short in the year by marking. So what he did was he put an extra 11 days into the year, and hence why we get the leap year in February, because it builds up where, in fact, the world spins 365 and a quarter days per year as it goes around the Earth. So they put another one in. They put another day in. That's 4 quarters make up another day. And the country moved in Sweden on February the 17th. It moved to March 1st. That was it. So if you had a bill on the 20th of February, they couldn't redeem the bill against you. Anyway, cut along this, probably not. Financial people are a lot cleverer than that. Anyway, so they joined the Gregorian calendar, as it's called now, and what we use at the present date. In 1801, there was an interesting tie in the presidential race where Jefferson, Thomas, and Aaron Burr tied within the Electoral College. So and Jefferson was then elected President of the United States, and Burr the Vice President, by the United States House of Representatives. That's an interesting one. 1954, the United Kingdom recognises the independence of the Orange Free State. Well, they've got free oranges. Why not? Let's get them for free. And then in 1863, I think this is good. This is a group of citizens got together in Geneva and founded the International Committee for the Relief of the Wounded, which later became the International Committee of the Red Cross, who've done so much work throughout these years in looking after people. 1864 comes along and the Civil War, and guess what? The first submarine in that war sinks the first warship, which was the USS Housatonic, and it was sunk by the H.L. Hunley. American Civil War again in 1865, just coming towards the end of it. The Columbia in South Carolina is burned by the Confederate forces as they flee from the Union forces. There's always got to be a bit of burning. There's no doubt about it. And a bit of burning, like burnt on the stake, burn things down. Now, the Russian Revolution didn't just happen in 1917. It had been building up for 20 odd years plus, even more, because of Karl Marx had been chased out of Russia and all various stuff. This is too short to do anything about that. But in 1905, Grand Duke Sergei Alexei Andronovich of Russia is assassinated in the military Kremlin by the socialist revolutionary Ivan. I can't say his second name, but it's Konoval or something. Didn't start the revolution, but it was the beginning of the end for the Tsarist regime. And this is another interesting fact for the 17th. The Ukrainian People's Republic asked the Entente, the Cordial Entente, which was a sort of agreement, still exists today between the French and the English, and Russia were in that one before we kicked them out. But at that time, they turned to that us group of three countries and the White Russians, not the Bolsheviks, and the United States for help, because the Bolsheviks, the Reds, were attacking the Ukraine. That poor country's seen enough of war. And then, in 1949, Chaim Weizmann becomes the first president of Israel. Again, another important date, because they are trying to build their country back after all those years of devastation. Now we get into some lovely space history with Vanguard. Vanguard 2 launches with a weather satellite in 1959. Great stuff. And now we can get an app and go, the weather today, the weather tomorrow. Oh, look, the weather in 5 minutes. It really was that, but that was the beginning, just over 66 years ago. And now Project Ranger. And this was again another important mission from NASA, who sent up a satellite that rotated itself around the moon, taking pictures, and they were looking for a landing site. And they got photographs of Mer de Tranquillité. In other words, the Sea of Tranquility, where Apollo 11 landed quite nicely in 1969. And then 72, another interesting stat for the motor people who love cars, like I do. I'm a petrol head, totally love them. And the Volkswagen Beetle in that year outsold the Model T, which actually creates another interesting fact. It took the model Volkswagen Beetle came out in the mid-30s, and it took from there until the 70s, 30 years, to outsell the Model T. But the Model T was only around for about 10 or 15 years, and it obviously sold a lot of cars before Ford moved on to improving the saloons, etc. And then, it's funny, it's 1974, a disgruntled American private in the American Army decides to steal a helicopter and buzz the White House. We all want to do that. We'd like to give Donald Trump a bit of a haircut. And we reached 1996 in Philadelphia, where Garry Kasparov beats Deep Blue's supercomputer built by IBM. But that's not unusual to think it would do that now, but I believe they built a computer nobody can beat. And again in 1996, NASA launches a probe going to land on a satellite. First to orbit it and then land. And then in 1996, in Indonesia, remember the one back in 1674, a massive earthquake happened, creating a tsunami on this date so many years apart, but still happened, with a severity of 8 on the Mercallian scale, where 166 people died and were missing and 423 were injured. But if you haven't fallen asleep by now, and you're still awake, I'd just like to say, I hope you feel educated. It's been a smashing little time for me. So, good day from the old bee, and have a nice one.